Speaking of phones, speaking of Apple, speaking of iPhone, speaking of security, iPhone loyalty rates down to an 8-year low, survey claims. This is coming via Apple Insider, an Apple-specific website that typically posts, well, I'm not going to say positive Apple news, but just Apple news for an Apple audience. So there's sometimes a skew. Well, you know what? I don't even feel like I don't even really have to say that. It's just for an Apple audience. So this, you can imagine this wouldn't be a well-received story because of that, but it's published here anyway. So I think that's significant that that's where we're reading about it. A lot of people get on my case, like, why are you always talking about negative Apple stuff? Look, Apple Insider is saying something negative about Apple here, but then again, it is just reporting on one particular survey. The loyalty of iPhone owners in the upgrade cycle outside of Apple's iPhone upgrade program has reportedly fallen to its lowest levels since 2011, benefiting Samsung, new survey data suggests. So of the 38,000 people who've traded in iPhones since October 2018, 73% have migrated to a later model. Apple's peak loyalty was 92% achieved in 2017. So here's quickly how to think about that. In 2017, 92% of people who upgraded to another iPhone. In 2019, only 73% of people on an iPhone upgrade to an iPhone. So somewhere within there, you have about 20% of users who went to use a different device. You might say, well, 73% seems pretty good, but you need to imagine the degree of loyalty that Apple has become accustomed to in the neighborhood of 92%. It's incredible. It's almost a 1-to-1 ratio. And it's hard. It's hard to switch platforms. It means giving up some of your applications that you're used to and comfortable with, including things like chat, Apple Messages. Wait, was that iMessage? Jeez, man. Holy moly. My brain implant.
Too many words.
My brain implant. No, I don't use it. I don't use iMessage, so that explains it. But I hear, obviously, from people, from dedicated Apple users, that it's things like iMessage that keep them connected. So switching to another platform, kind of a big move, not something you're going to do frequently. So if you have a 20% difference from 2017 to 2019, that's pretty significant. That person has to overcome a fairly significant amount of friction to switch platforms. Conversely, only 7.7% of Samsung Galaxy S9 owners picked up an iPhone, and 18% of the iPhone owners who left the platform chose a Samsung device. So more people moved in the Samsung direction as suggested via this survey. Now, 38,000 people is a big survey. That's a huge sample size, so that's worth noting. Now, that's just one survey. It's just one set of users on one particular trade-in site, but I think it's interesting nonetheless. Now, you could start to think about some of the reasons this might be the case. It's likely some of the stuff that I've been talking about for a while now in relationship to the premium smartphone market as a whole, but also in relationship to Apple specifically. They've got very expensive devices in a marketplace that has recently delivered more selection, more value than ever before. And also a global, increasingly global marketplace where regions have different offers, different brands to choose from, and are getting far more attention in those regions directly suited for them that wasn't happening previously. So look, here's the thing. Is it the notch? Is it the screen to body ratio? I don't think so. I don't think it's actually the physical design of the device. I put a lot more emphasis on price. And Android getting better, to be quite honest. I think once upon a time, the idea of transitioning from an iPhone to something from Android for most iPhone users would be an impossibility. I think people started to open that conversation. I think even channels like mine, my own exposure to what's happening in Android, how much better things have gotten. The fact that the App Store, app selection has caught up so much on the Android side. And then, like I said previously, selection in general and value. So I don't think it's the notch. I don't think the next iPhone's going to save it, to be honest, either. I don't think maybe 2 generations down the road, if they make a pretty strong change to the design of it, it's possible. But I think this is more of a value thing. And I think if Apple wants to keep more users in-house, then they're going to have to really change how they're looking at their value offering. And the XR didn't do enough to provide that value device to keep people in the ecosystem. Because it's important to note that once you're out of the ecosystem, you're not interfacing anymore with so many of those services and so many of those revenue potentials. If you stay on the platform, Apple can monetize you in different ways. So they need to start thinking about subsidizing those services by potentially offering up devices with a lower profit margin, because they have, of course, this astronomical profit margin that they're aiming to support. And meanwhile, on the flip side, on the Android side, particularly in markets like India, you have speculation that some of these smartphone companies might actually be selling devices at a loss. There's speculation about that. That's how aggressive they're being. Meanwhile, Apple protecting these massive margins, they might not be able to do so forever, because parity is happening within the smartphone marketplace, increasing.